Hello and welcome to another LinkedIn Live. And on today's LinkedIn Live, we are going into generative AI news or AI news, mainly generative AI, just things that have happened over the last few weeks. I haven't done an AI update in a little bit of time because I took a little bit of time off from LinkedIn Live. And also, we just had our top 10 bold predictions for 2024. One of them sadly came true. I predicted the Toronto Raptors would trade Pascal Siakam. I'm a Toronto Raptors fan. It wasn't a leap in terms of a risky prediction because there was a lot of rumors that that might happen. But as a fan of the team and a fan of Pascal Siakam's story, it's a prediction that came true, but one that I'm actually quite sad about, reflective of, because it's a great development story. I'm in professional development. Part of my space is also to develop myself, learn new skills, whether it be technology or communication, and have a growth, which is harder to do the longer your career goes on. It is harder to grow. You do get set in your ways, and a lot of those ways are pretty good. They accomplish a lot of things, but to continue to get better at some aspect of what you do, and also maybe even to take leaps in terms of your skill set is hard as you move along your developmental path. And Pascal Siakam is just an amazing, unique story of development, from how he was discovered to how he developed a set of skills that made him a very, very not just good but elite basketball player. Someone who works in development. It's a great story. It's a great story for an organization that invests in its people. And so to see that story kind of end in a somewhat of a sour note, the way the organization may have treated him was a little sad. But it's one of my predictions. We'll see if the other ones come true. All right, well, I'm back. For those that are here, thanks for joining me on today's LinkedIn Live. I just had a few things that I wanted to bring up in terms of generative AI news, and I'll go through them in a maybe an order that will maybe make itself clear as I go through. The first is just developments in terms of ChatGPT and how ChatGPT was trained. The generative AI, the GPT-4. I've gone through the history in other LinkedIn lives of how OpenAI developed ChatGPT, which is the most used generative AI platform, and GPT-4, the engine that supports ChatGPT, which can be accessed by other developers with the permission of OpenAI to develop other things. And I've demonstrated some of those softwares on LinkedIn Live. There are questions about how did the training model work, the attention model, the transformer model. Where did this information come? And we have what's called general adversarial networks, all this information that needs to be accumulated and given to an artificial intelligence like GPT-4 to learn and train. Was there copyright infringement? And that is really a headline news item right now. So if we go into uh, what is to me a big story, and it's still something that we're seeing sort of play out, is that the New York Times sues OpenAI and Microsoft, because Microsoft is ultimately part of the OpenAI, not technically in terms of ownership or equity, but definitely a strategic partner with OpenAI. The New York Times sued OpenAI for use of its copyrighted work in training the artificial intelligence ChatGPT. And this is one of the things that's interesting about the suit is maybe there is a monetary aspect to it for the New York Times, but this is around information, privacy, copyright. And when we look at generative AI needs information. It needs information to continue to grow, to continue to get better at responding to multiple queries, both sophisticated, abstract, in different ways, whether it be art, science, problem solving, graphics, videos. We're just going to see more and more of this. But where is it getting its information? And we know that the information was originally through Reddit. That was back in 2018 with first iterations of ChatGPT, trying to learn sort of the language, the natural process language, so we can start to understand some of the unstructured data that it was given. But then as it progressed, what other information was it given to get trained on? And this is not the first lawsuit. George R. Martin and other authors have sued OpenAI, claiming that their work has been used by OpenAI to train its generative AI platform. And now we have, and I see Sarah Silverman, John Grissom. Now we have the New York Times, and this is it's a big one because the New York Times carries a lot of weight and heft in this lawsuit. And this is going to progress. This is interesting to follow because generative AI needs access to just infinite information, and it doesn't discriminate ultimately where that information is coming from. It just needs information. If it starts to discriminate, oh, well, this is copyrighted, this is something we have to ask permission for, it stops that flow that allows it to learn so quickly. So it's in OpenAI's best interest that there is an argument that it's really not taking information as the New York Times sees it. It's just gathering stuff like a child gathering, toys and sand, just sort of indiscriminately, not really understanding that it's works of others and not using it in the same way because it's breaking the information apart. That's OpenAI's argument. The New York Times is like, no, you are taking information that is ours. I don't care if you break it up into billions of pieces. That's our information. You don't have the right to do that without our permission. This is an interesting case to follow because if it goes to the highest court in the United States, Supreme Court, it could create a situation where generative AI slows down a bit here. Because if there is an injunction or question about generative AI and where their information sources are coming from, and that there needs to be protocol to ask permission for any type of source that is patented or owned by an author or an organization, that could really slow down OpenAI's development and even into what we call strong AI, which is something that strong AI is the next version of artificial narrow intelligence, where we're going to see potentially more sentience behind it, and that's OpenAI's goal, is to develop strong artificial intelligence, or general artificial intelligence, as it's called as well. We'll have to see. So that's interesting, something to keep following if you're interested in this space. The next one I thought was interesting because this is a space that I work in as well and deliver courses on. Um, just had a course created on FTX and blockchain and cryptocurrency and the cryptocurrency exchange. So that's on demand. And blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, it's gotten a lot of, let's just say, negative press because of Sam Bankman-Fried, because of NFTs, and how is this really being used, and the fluctuations with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But remember, in other LinkedIn Live, and if you ever want to take a course on what blockchain is, that's really the important part. Blockchain, I have an on-demand course. Blockchain is really the transformative technology, and one of the transferable properties of blockchain is to validate data, so that information that goes into something gets validated through the blockchain process, which is complicated. And I describe this in other courses. And so, one of the thoughts, and this is from a CNBC article, is that blockchain can be used to validate the information that generative AI and other AI models are trained on, so that the information is more verifiable. There's more veracity to that information, so that it's not that the artificial intelligence is being trained on information that is misleading or false, or going to be used in a way that might be detrimental. And we talked about European regulation and US regulation on the use of AI. And so this is something that to follow, whether blockchain has a use to help make sure that the quality of information that generative AI is using in terms of veracity is higher than it is right now. But you think of these two things coming together, that there's lawsuits on copyrights and patents and how the generative AI is being trained, and now we want more scrutiny about the quality of information. This has the potential to slow it down a little bit, and so there's going to be pushback, I would say, by OpenAI, definitely on the lawsuit, but also here to say, hey, we got to let information flow like water here, so that we can get better, the AI can get better, and we can just keep progressing. And where their argument is that the good outweighs the bad here in terms of where AI is moving. So that's interesting to follow. And so blockchain could be reinvigorated in another way because blockchain still gets attached to fraud and cryptocurrency and things that somewhat seem a little bit spurious in terms of real use, like NFTs and digital art. But in this space, blockchain might get reinvigorated as something to look at because it's being combined with artificial intelligence. So there we have OpenAI is in the center of our generative AI today in generative AI news, which it normally is. Um, Another one that I think is really interesting. Now, I'm not here to be political in any sense because that's not what I do, and it's somewhat of a tricky space to start talking about politics. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, as we head into a major election and other major elections that go across the world, but of course in the United States, there is concern about what might happen with artificial intelligence and its use inside the election process, potentially in a way that undermines the quality of the election process and cast doubt. And that are what we say are deep fakes and other ways in which artificial intelligence can be used in ways that mislead others in terms of information that helps them make a decision about a candidate. And we're seeing some of that now. We're seeing some of that now. And OpenAI again is a key player in this. And this is um, Washington Post headlines, not only in the Washington Post, but one of the hopefuls for the Democratic hopeful, and you'd say would be Joe Biden, but there are others that potentially are wanting to at least enter the Democratic discussions in the U.S. is Dean Phillips, and his super PAC used a Dean bot to create an artificial intelligence version of him to send out information, newsletters, and other things using GPT-4. And GPT-4 can be accessed through OpenAI by developers to create other applications for the generative AI engine that runs ChatGPT. And so the OpenAI has put a series of requirements and restrictions on how you can use GPT-4 as a developer. One of those is you cannot use them for political purposes. So this is one of the first ones where OpenAI said, "Wait a minute, now you're using GPT-4 to create a bot with this particular candidate, and that's against our rules." And it stopped this chatbot from working. And this is something that OpenAI it will have to become more, I guess, vigilant on. There's going to be more and more players that are going to use GPT-4. Maybe they say they're using it for one thing, but they use it for another. And whether they have to be detective of this and then stop it as they find out about it, or preventative as we come up on election season, that is a concern. And to that last point, I thought we'd just do something together. This is from the New York Times, and I thought it's a really interesting use of AI generated images to just say, how do we really know what these images represent? Because they're getting better and better, these images and videos. And this is, again, I there's a lot of potential and a lot of uses to help things in terms of video creation, education, um, learning, a lot of positives. But of course, there are some negatives as well, especially as we enter an election cycle, specifically in the U.S. So this is from the New York Times, and I'll urge you to take this. I'll send this link, but it's basically, can you identify the images that were created by artificial intelligence and images that are not? And not so easy. I think a lot of us think we'd be able to identify artificial intelligence images and videos. There's a sense that, yeah, you know what, I can't. I know what is AI and I know what is not AI. And be honest with you, that is one of the central conversations, especially in the professional services space, like accountants, engineers, lawyers. It is getting harder to do this both for written documents, emails, images, videos, because generative AI is not static. It is getting better and better and better and better every day, every week, every month. It's learning. It's not artificial strong intelligence or general intelligence, artificial intelligence. So it's not sentient, but it is learning through the way in which it learns through general adversarial networks and all the other components that fuel a GPT-4, and in learning, it's going to get better. So the images that you might have seen a couple months ago, and you said, "No, I can tell that person is artificial intelligence," or that video or that email was written by ChatGPT or a software using GPT-4. It's like, yeah, potentially you were correct a couple months ago, and potentially you were wrong a couple of months ago as well. But it's getting better and better and better and better. And one of the questions we want to ask ourselves is, when we use generative AI or AI platforms, how much do we want to disclose that that's what we've done, right? Because we can deliver a report, a presentation, an email, a video recording, and it's possible in the next few months, we do not need to disclose that that was produced, written, or is artificial intelligence at all, because it would be hard to see. Nobody would ask because it's getting very hard to tell. And what is our professional responsibility to be forthcoming with that? These are good questions that we will answer and discuss throughout the year as I spend a lot of time in this space. All right, that is today's generative AI news. We talked about the lawsuit from the New York Times suing OpenAI on copyright. We discussed how blockchain technology might be used to improve the quality of information used by AI models. Talked about the open AI ban of the Democratic hopeful Dean Phillips and his use of the chatbot. And then I'll put that link on the New York Times. Test yourself to see, how well we're able to tell AI images apart from real images, and specifically with people. All right, I should be back next week with another LinkedIn Live. We'll see if I keep it in the technology space. Technology, it just the news is constantly flowing, and sometimes the information that I provide is just incrementally a little bit more value to what I provided in the week before, or the month before. Anytime there's a big news drop, like when Sam Altman was fired from OpenAI, joined Microsoft, got rehired, and all that stuff that happened. I mean, that will be the story that I bring to you on LinkedIn Live. But again, I think a big part of our theme here for me and LinkedIn Live going forward will be on OpenAI, or not just OpenAI, generative AI. So all those that were watching, thank you. Let me know if you have any comments. I replied to them after because I'm in my little groove here. So I look at the comments after and I reply back to them. And I always appreciate feedback and questions through LinkedIn Live. But yeah, we'll be back next week and we'll most likely talk about artificial intelligence. And maybe, of course, the other space I work in is communication as well. Any communication, well, I'll bring that back in, but probably a little bit more volume on the AI stuff. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great week.